Hello friends, Eli Hibbett here with the Pwn Your Homework Physics Series podcast. If you're looking to prepare, review, or gain an added edge or point of view about topics in physics, then look no further. Tune in each week to unlock your understanding of the physical world surrounding us. And now let's dive right in. Alright, how is everybody feeling today? I am feeling very excited. I just got finished cutting together the second half of my interview with the Evil Dr Neptune. And in this we get into a couple of stories from our freshman year, days of yore. And we also talk a little bit about what it's like to be a new physicist and kind of the helpless feeling that you get and how you really should stick with it, kind of encourage you to stick with it, and that you're not really alone, even though most of the time you do feel alone. So without further ado, let's get into it right now. So, I don't know if you're ready for this one.
Go for it, yeah.
Tell me the coolest thing you know about physics.
Coolest thing I know about physics. Well, my favorite thing, and I've used this word flow before, and it's really, really easy when I say that word to just picture, like water moving. It's more of this dynamic link between everything. Something I learned that just kind of blew my mind was that electricity, moving electrons, flows just like water does down a pipe. And then you find these parallels between everything and anything, so everything ends up moving all just in the exact same way to find its stability. And you can just find the evidence of such a thing everywhere. And so that's one of the best parts about physics, is that I can literally be sitting in a room or outside or anywhere and just look around and pick something and just kind of analyze it a little and think about all the interactions that are going on and how things flow, or like why things are in the position that they are, or how it would move if I changed something a little different. And so that's the part that I like, is that it's so omnipresent.
Isn't it? It's amazing. I think that, if you're here, if you're on Earth, if you're on the other side of the world, if you're like in China, if you're on the moon, if you're in another galaxy, it's pretty much all the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking about this with a barista at Starbucks one day, and they're like, it's like, this only applies in your solar system. I'm like, you're kidding, right? Like, just, I don't even know how to respond to that at this stage of the game.
It doesn't, man. It's everywhere.
Sorry, man. This is hardcore legit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I guess that sort of will segue that into the next part, which would be, give me your favorite. No, wait. Let's nix that for a second. I just wanted to share my thing, which is actually kind of in parallel with what you were saying. Yesterday there was a terrible rainstorm, and this is one of the coolest things I know about physics. And I actually saw a rainbow, and it was like the most vivid rainbow I've ever seen in my life, which sounds kind of like hippie-ish, but it was like so clear. I couldn't believe it. And because we had a really terrible rainstorm, we got like 14 inches of rain in like 2 hours.
I heard about the flooding down there.
It was unbelievable. The ride home from work was terrible, but this rainbow was awesome. And one thing that I learned in fifth year electromagnetics was that when you see a rainbow, actually what you're seeing is a very thick fog of little floating droplets of water. Uh-huh. And nobody sees the same rainbow because you're all the light is different photons are refracting through each little water droplet at a different angle and going right into your eyes.
At even a specific angle that's relative to you, so it makes a circle at the end of a cone that is directed into your eyes. Everyone,
unbelievable.
It's fantastic.
And so it's like having a bunch of prisms just hanging out there and giving you just a little piece of it.
So one of the coolest parts about my lab is because I have these giant fish tanks. I have like the 1,700-gallon fish tank in my lab, and you fill it with water, and it becomes a singular giant prism. So I look at the fluorescent lights, and I see just a rectangle, giant square rectangle that's a few feet long, but it's barred perfectly in a diffraction rainbow. And it's like, that is the coolest thing that I can ever see. And I get to look at it all day long. Is that like, look at this absolutely perfect rainbow of like I can pick out every color individually. Like it's that thick.
You think you can send me a picture of it?
I think I might be able to. Yeah, might be able to do that.
Give it a try, and then maybe I'll post it with this. That would be pretty cool.
Okay.
Okay, so next, what is your best experience related to physics? Sort of on an undergrad like intro level. What was like your best experience?
Oh, I absolutely fell in love with physics on my first day of college. I didn't.
I was in your class the first day of college.
Oh, dude, everyone saw me do this. I went into college thinking like maybe I'd go into psychology, and oh my god, what a joke that would have been. So on my first day, this is the best part about physics, that like to show physics, all you have to do is do things. Like just because it's because it's so omnipresent, like I've said, it's like you just got to find the right thing, and it's mimicking, or it's giving you an example of physics. So my professor, Dr. Ed Pogo,
yeah, dude, he's awesome. You can say his name.
I gotta plug Pogo. My favorite quote is from him. He said, "Fill it with vacuum." He was talking about this stupid cell in one of our experiments sophomore year. I'm like, "But would you say fill it with vacuum?" He goes, "Yes, I did." I'm like, all right,
fill it with vacuum, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it here first.
But so on our first day, he he looked around and he kind of spaced out the room and figured out what he needed to do, and he goes, "Yeah, they pay me enough for this." I'm like, "What?" So he grabs a piece of chalk and he goes over to corkboard and draws a big square on the corkboard, and then he asks, "Okay, I need someone who can throw." And he's looking around a room full of scientists, and
yeah, nobody's raising their hand,
and like nobody's raising their hand. I'm like, "You're kidding, right?"
Yeah, like, especially coming from him, because he's not necessarily the most,
No, I guess not. So I'm like, all right, fine. I'm semi-athletic. Okay, I'm very athletic.
Yeah, you were very athletic.
Fine, I'll do it. So I raise my hands, like, I'll do a pogo. So he comes down and he hands me a tennis ball. He goes, "Okay, hit that square relatively hard with the tennis ball." I'm like, all right, no big deal. Throw it at the wall. Wham! And I, more or less nailed the square. And he goes, "Okay, good. I just want to make sure that you can aim." So then he pulls out a dozen eggs, and he hands me one.
I remember this. and I was like, "Oh, this is not happening." Like, we're gonna have a mess.
Then he said, "What do you think's gonna happen when it hits the wall?" I'm like, "It's going to crack all over and make a mess." He goes, "Yes, it will." So now I need 2 more people, and then he gets 2 more volunteers. And he has them hold up a bed sheet in the way, and he goes, "What's gonna happen?" I'm like, "Well, assuming that you probably don't want to mess here, it's going to hit the bed sheet and not break." He goes, "Okay, now go ahead, throw the egg." And so I wind up and I throw the bed sheet, and sure enough, it rolls into the pouch or swath, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. 2 things I remember about that. The first thing was, like, I remember you kind of giving him a hard time and being like, "Oh, who is this kid?" And the other thing was, like, I was not convinced that you weren't going to break it. Because I saw you throw that ball, and I was like, dude, he's going to jam this egg so hard into that blanket.
Yeah, I know.
It's going to break
the wall anyway.
And he's going to be like, "What the hell?"
But then he goes on to show says like, "Okay, so why didn't the egg break?" And like, it hit a surface, it stopped. The velocity, you threw it just as hard as you did the tennis ball, and it came to a stop. So why didn't it break? And at freshman physics, I had no answer for him.
I had no idea. I was like,
I
had never really thought about that.
It's like, no, I have no idea why it doesn't break against the bed sheet, even though like the whole thing stopped. I was like, what does that even mean? It hit a solid thing, didn't it? Right?
Yeah.
So, and then he goes on and shows just the simplest of equations on the board. He doesn't derive it from anything. He puts it down. It's like, so you see that the longer the thing is in longer of time, it's in contact with the surface, the less impulses delivered to the surface, and therefore breaking bonds and makes the whole thing crack. So with the wall, because it's so hard, the ball or the egg would be in contact for a very short amount of time, and therefore receive a large impulse. And so, but with the bed sheet, because the sheet gives and it touches the sheet for a longer period of time, it does not, while it's decelerating, it does not break. And I was like, wow, that's pretty awesome that you could just show that mathematically.
And that's it, you're hooked, right?
That's just, I was really hooked at that point. And like at some point I was like, wow, so you're saying I can explain everything, and then it's just the place and all that. That's what really kept me in there. I mean, the physics community is really cool because everyone knows how hard it is, and they're all really trying to help you. And if you're there and you're trying, they like you.
That is the one thing. I mean, like, I feel like physics has a reputation of being a very skeptical community and giving people a very tough time. But that doesn't mean they're not supportive. It just means that they're trying to really make sure that, you know, what you're saying is reliable.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, everyone's there trying to do the exact same thing, and they want to support you. And it's actually kind of like the opposite of what you think. But like when they're doing that, they're actually helping you to become a better person, even though it doesn't really seem like it when they're grilling you.
Yeah, I mean, and they're just used to tough love because that science does not hit softly. So like if you're not used to just, you know, getting it thrown in your face, then you're not prepped to handle it. So they give it to you straight. It's like, you're doing this wrong. You're doing this wrong. You should be doing this. Why aren't you doing this? It's overwhelming that how much they're berating you for your mistakes. But
I get so mad.
It's so frustrating.
You can't help but be just like amazingly defensive.
Oh yeah, and then that's the thing is that you claim that you're putting in effort, but like it's apparently the wrong effort, and just you and then like you go back and you try a really hard a second time, and you got it, you got it, and then turns out you're just completely wrong still, and it doesn't matter, like there's no like everyone's good at this right off the bat, like very select. Yeah. 3 people are good at it right off the bat. No, you have to just try and fail over and over again.
And the two things about that, the first thing is like everyone goes through that the first time. You have to get your ass kicked the first time. There's no way around it. It's the only way you're really gonna do it. And then the next time you're like, I'm gonna prepare so damn hard. I am not going through that again. And it happens the same way again. Yeah. but you're a lot more prepared. And the other thing is that when someone tells you that you're wrong, they're actually saving you a lot of time, because you would just waste the rest of your time.
Yeah,
going down this road that makes no sense, and you're so close to it,
and you get nothing out of it.
Yeah, you get nothing out of it, and you can't really see it because you're too close to it, and it's a big hell. I like it a lot, but going through that process of getting your butt kicked leads me to what was your worst experience related to Intro to Physics? I'll lead with mine. I have no shortage of terrible memories.
Yeah,
from physics. Sophomore lab, hands down, I hated it. Hated the whole thing, top to bottom. And the experiments were very cool. But for the first time, I had to be organized, which I'm not, and I had to keep a notebook, which I'm terrible at.
I'm terrible at it too, still.
I had to be exhaustively descriptive about things that I wasn't necessarily sure of, which I hated. Yeah. And I didn't get a good grade at the end. So the whole thing was for nothing. And it's one credit. You're like, oh my god, this is eating up every week of my life. And eat up like 8 to 10 hours, and it's like one credit is nothing.
I know.
But yeah, and then afterwards we would walk down, disheveled to the union and get a whole big thing of cookie dough and just eat it. Eat an entire thing of cookie dough. That was gross.
That's so gross.
I just told my mother-in-law about that. I was like, we used to eat an entire, whatever you want to call it, a cookie dough after lab. Every week.
Every week.
Oh my god. Oh man. Well, when I'm dead at 75, they'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, that explains.
Graduate physics labs are awesome, by the way. Those are really cool.
Yeah. Well, once you know what you're doing, after you get through sophomore lab and really get it handed to you,
yeah,
you get through it, and then you're like, okay. And then once you're like remotely qualified to do it, it becomes wildly interesting. But first things first, worst experience.
Yeah. Okay, my worst experience. Let's see.
Oh, you love physics so much, there's no bad experience?
Oh God, no. It's not that. I mean, it's all like. I mean. Well, the worst experience is like the best experience in a lot of ways. It's so tiresome. Like it's no matter what you like. The worst experience is really it's what it is getting institutionalized. That's the worst experience.
Getting broken.
Getting broken is the worst part about it, because it's so overwhelmingly right. And, like, when it's hard, it's just because you're not trying hard enough, and it's always that way.
Yeah, it certainly feels that way.
So
God
it's
damn.
like you just have to just that's the worst part is that like you have to like it enough to do it when it hurts you, and
It hurts quite almost all the time.
almost all the time.
Really.
And like the rewards are really cool, but like I mean it does not pull its punches. It's always a bear. There's no easy part of it. It's like from day one, even the freshman stuff is hard. Like in my lab, that's the funny part. We had talk today because I have to hire undergrads. The undergrad I have now, he's really awesome, but he's leaving, and we were just talking about like, oh, these people don't have fluids knowledge, and he's like, I have never used a single bit of fluids in your fluids lab this whole time. And I thought about it, it's like, yeah, I mean, the fluids part is all really high-level stuff, and it's only the graduate work. Like, I mean, the undergrads, they don't need fluids. What they really need is basic physics knowledge, like Physics 1, because that stuff you use every day.
Every day. All
every
stuff.
single day. So, like, I mean, even in the roughest form, to do it perfectly and accurately, to really understand the true interactions in the physics and how stuff is going on, yes, you need upper level classes and differential equations and instruments to measure stuff, and like, yeah, okay, if you want to learn it, but to do that's why it's so important to kind of like for everyone to have at least the basic understanding of physics. I mean, just every when you drive your car, understanding how stopping works, how stopping friction works, like why you're on a wet asphalt as opposed to dry asphalt, or like why hydroplaning is what it is. I gave a graduate lesson in fluids for my advisor one time, and it was on hydroplaning, how like bearing friction, how that all works. It's a fascinating lecture and has a very simple thing. It's like you increase the pressure increases to the point where it lifts the whole car. It's crazy.
It's unbelievable. I mean, like I'm gonna sound like such a pompous jerk for saying it, but like that sort of stuff that I know of, and like sort of just like sits in the back of my mind on a regular basis, and I use like when I'm hydroplaning, like how to kind of handle that. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I don't know what I would do if I didn't have this knowledge, and like I don't know how other people make it through the day with in those types of situations,
Well, just everyone has because like I said, you use physics every day, whether you know the equations or not. People practice the stuff and make their own observations and get better at it and pass the skills on. So everyone has this basic understanding of physics without knowing what and why they're doing. But the cool thing is when you actually know what and why you're doing it, you can exploit it to your advantage even better. So like something you were just talking about hydroplaning, something I love doing with my car is I love sliding around corners and during icy winters. And someone asked me, it's like, okay, so why do you steer into the turn to get your car out of the slide? And I'm like, well, it's simple. You steered one way and you tried to apply a torque to your car, and there wasn't enough friction for your car to follow the torque, and so it slid out, it translated instead of rotated. Mm-hmm. So you turn into that direction simply because it's the opposite torque. You then try to count that thing, and then so your car is translated, but then you unspin yourself, and it starts moving forward. So that's as simple as it is, and the absolute fascinating part about this, and this honestly has only happened in the last few years when I've gotten such a familiar handle in physics, is that there are things like that I didn't think about prior, and simply when someone asked me it, I thought about it, I understood it, and I could explain it.
You don't even
and it
know
was,
that you know it.
I just absolutely knew it. I was always bad at parallel parking, and this one time I had to go parallel park my car, and I thought about it for once. I'm like, oh, I just make this shape, which means there's two inflection points. Inflection points are the second derivative. It's when I turn my wheel. So if I turn my wheel here and here, my car will do it. And I did it just in first try with like not even doing it slowly. I just knew turn my wheel here, turn my wheel back, done, and it worked out. And it just kind of understood the math of it. Not even because I practiced parallel parking that often, but because I understood the math.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So
it gives you an edge it gives you a lot of confidence because you're like, it's gonna work. I know how this works. It's over. And yeah, I like that a lot. One thing I wanted to ask you about was, do you have any sort of resource that you would recommend to newcomers?
To newcomers, like actually in a physics program?
Yeah, someone who's just getting into physics. You know, one thing that I guess I would recommend is hyperphysics. I love hyperphysics.
Oh yeah, I mean, sure. All right, so the internet's like incredibly valuable. Okay, that's the beautiful thing is that I mean, through almost the first 3 or 4 years, heck, the first 2 years of MIT physics lectures are on YouTube. They uploaded it.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
Go get an MIT education and then apply it at your your SUNY undergrad and watch how good you are at it. Plus, the MIT professors are awesome. They're really awesome. Physics people are crazy, and so all these things are kind of fun. Yeah, so hyperphysics is good. Wikipedia is good. Use the internet. Like, if you don't know something, just Google search it and read. You get so much out of it. And
I remember when I was in when I was in high school, I couldn't understand how you transform from Riemann sums to an integral. And I tried to find a book on it in the library, and there was like one book, and it was old and over and underly verbose at the same time. It gave me all this information I didn't need, and I had no idea how to understand it. And now you just YouTube search it, and someone will tell you exactly in your language the way you want it. And you're like, wow, this is awesome. You can find out anything in the world that you want.
Almost
and you can
anything.
hear from like 15 different people in all these different perspectives.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, use the internet.
So, use the internet. Then the real resource, especially if you're in a program, and I can't stress this enough, have friends in the program. Science is not something done individually. You can't just learn by yourself. You can't motivate yourself to stay in it the right way. Like, you have to share the burden with someone, but like you also need to learn from someone, because there are things that one person will get that the other won't, and you will help each other out, and that needs to happen. That is how science has always happened. So find at least one friend, if not a group, and stick with them, and really like dedicate yourself to them as your friends and the program, and then also have separate other friends so you can go crazy and not do physics now and then.
Absolutely.
You need a break.
Don't forget to take a break, and it's certainly not a one-man sport.
No.
Yeah, because it was a one-man sport for me first year, and I did worse than I thought I was going to do. And then once you sort of find out who's doing it with you, it gets so much easier, because you're not alone. Like, everybody feels. You might think that like, oh, everybody else knows what they're doing. Nobody knows what they're doing.
Nobody knows. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, nobody knows, and like you get trained a little more and more and more. Then, I mean, when you're in my position, seriously, I have to make choices based on no evidence, just on hunches, because I'm like, well, if I think this will happen, but I think this will happen, and I like this one more, and well, I could ask someone for help, but there is no one else who knows the answer to this question. In fact, I'm probably the best person to answer this question, because I have been looking and touching it for like the last few hours.
Isn't that the best feeling in the world?
It's like, okay, so I guess the judgment call is mine, and let's go with this one.
Yeah, and eventually the office hours are over, so you got to ask somebody else, and somebody else will give you an idea that you never thought of before. That'll probably help you figure it out on your own, if not know exactly what to do. So
yeah.
All right, man. So, well, this was awesome. I had a blast. I hope you did too.
I did.
And so again, Mr. Neptune, Dr. Neptune?
The evil Dr. Neptune.
The evil Dr. Neptune. There it is. So, for the first time on the airwaves, thank you very much for coming on and giving me a little insight into your life.
Thank you.
And I'll catch you on the flip side, man.
Sounds good, buddy.
Cheers.
Okay. Later.
All right, well, I think that's going to do it for our interview with the evil Dr. Neptune. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly had a good time going down memory lane a little bit. One thing I wanted to mention, in the show notes, I linked up, google.com, wikipedia.org, kind of trying to be funny, but I do think it's really a serious thing. I mean, there's so much at your fingertips that just those two resources can get you through so many questions that you may have right off the bat. And going a little deeper, we were talking about hydroplaning during the interview a little bit, and what happens when you hydroplane is that if the water under your tires can't get out of the way fast enough for your tires to touch the concrete, you wind up essentially riding on this water, and you're pretty much a car on an air track, because water does not have the nice friction that we enjoy on the pavement on a regular basis. And so I did link up a Wikipedia article about fluid bearing and how all that works if you wanted to dive a little deeper. And so with that, if you want to show me some love, my Twitter handle is 2718productions. And otherwise, you can check me out on 2718productions.com for more about the podcast and to check out some of my physics apps, which we will hear more about next time. So until then, I wish you a healthy understanding of the physics that's torturing you at the moment. And with that, I also wish you way more than luck. Take care, everybody.